So the reason we are here, this is the fourth in our series of snackable webinars, and we're focusing on how programmers can use audience data to help build and improve your loyalty, engagement, perhaps revenue. And quite simply, at this moment where public radio is in a seismic turnover, every member of a station staff has a role to play in building revenue pipelines, which includes the programming piece of this. And why this matters, we know why we're here. And whether you were receiving CPB funding previously or have not been a CPB recipient, we're all facing a slowing economy, an uncertain holiday and Q4 season. And so optimizing your programming as much as is feasible, fully understanding the limitations that stations have from resources, is going to help you to generate additional revenue and should be a priority, particularly as we are now in mid-September and Q4 is quickly coming on the horizon, and projections for holiday spending are projected to be down 5% 2025 versus last year. So it's incumbent upon us to try and pull additional revenue in however we're able to. The RRC's perspective, again, how can you use your audience data as programmers? First is to identify your best performing shows and hosts, and then look, where are the holes in the programming? Are there opportunities to build incremental AQH, to improve TSL, again, by a few minutes at a time, and sharing audience data with all the stakeholders at your station? And I understand that in some cases you are the primary stakeholder. It's going to help to lift each endeavor, whether it's underwriting, membership, programming, development. It's imperative to understand how to use the data and that all people that play a role in your station's activities have access to the data and understand it. And we'll come back to this more in a moment, but if there's anyone that does not understand aspects of data, how to interpret it, that's why we're here, and we would love to speak with you and connect to help you to do so. So the metrics that matter, you can see them on your screen, and I'm going to add to this, and I'm going to throw it to the guys in a moment, so heads up. Check your average daily time spent per occasion. TSL is great, but listen, check your time spent per occasion, especially well, you can only do that in PPM markets, and the turnover rate. Where are people tuning in? How long are they tuning in for? And what is pushing them to tune out? Those granular insights are critical. In diary markets, excuse me, you can check your weekly tune-in volumes. You can check your P1 weekly Q percentages. If that P1 percentage is low, you have an opportunity to adjust your programming to increase those numbers among your P1 listeners and benefit the station as a result. You may also pick off more of those P2s and convert them into P1s with that focus. So I'm going to first go to Carl. When we think about in diary markets, P1 percentages, what's a baseline healthy P1 weekly Q percentage, Carl?
At least 40%. That's where you're healthy. Yeah, we're your first preference audience. So people that, in Nielsen terms, just mean those are the people that listen to you more than they do any other radio station that they listen to, and they're spending at least 40% of their listening time.
Okay, thank you. And Dave Sullivan, in the PPM world, and this is your area of expertise, what's the impact on the 3-minute qualifier in time spent per occasion? Is that something that programmers should be looking at, and how to interpret the time spent per occasion as a whole?
We're still looking at the Nielsen upgrade to their PPM methodology. We only have 6 months out so far. I guess we're in the middle of the 8th month, but so far we're not. We are seeing more occasions of listening. That's the main thing that drives it. The occasions is more. That's how, with recycling of your audience as a programming department, that's how you get me to come back more often. Forward promoting, recycling, redirecting, and other things. So that's really where it comes in PPM markets, the number of occasions, but duration, like you say, sometimes too, we can see increases there as well. Back to what Carl said about, 40% of listening coming from your P1s. That's probably a good, middle of the road number. There's such a core audience remaining today to non-commercial radio stations that, a lot of stations do get 50% of their AQH, up to 80% of their AQH coming from 50% of their listeners. When you have a station that's only getting P1 listeners and they're showing up as 23% of your total cume, that's something you need to work on. That's something you need to figure out. Oftentimes there's reasons for it, as Carl and I can help, but yeah, that's a lower number. The 40% Carl quoted, that's a pretty good percentage of your listeners that are doing the listening.
Thank you both for that. That's very helpful. And the other piece I would add, you see it on the screen, but if you aren't working with your membership department to track your donor patterns, especially with fall fund drives coming quickly on the horizon here, check the donor patterns of the actual time that you see the heaviest volumes of people calling into the station to make donations. Morning and afternoon drives, of course, are going to be paramount, but are you seeing a steady flow in middays or in evenings or on weekends? If you aren't seeing over the last couple of drives a heavy input of donations coming through callers during those time periods, perhaps shift either to move a challenge grant into those time periods, or conversely move them into higher performing day parts and really maximize the effort where you're already seeing donors coming through. But it's a good time to go through that data with your membership team and explore this together to optimize both the layout and structure of your fund drive and where the promos are going to be placed with those calls to action. So optimizing your programming lineup, and the asterisk is quite simply, as the resources allow, we fully understand the challenge that so many of you are facing at this moment. And so using your loyalty charts to check your schedule updates, strengthen weaker day parts with more data, and improving underperforming day parts. An example, and I've used this a few times, but I'm going to mention it again because I think it's important. I was consulting with a, excuse me, with a CCM station a couple of weeks ago, and they were running half-an-hour programming blocks. And in the morning, they had a high TSL, high-performing show at 10, and half the audience was gone at 10:31. And so it identified where that hole was and how to perhaps fix that to retain more of that audience, because a couple of additional AQH listings among a smaller station's audience like that can have a real impact on the overall performance of the station in the numbers. So check those hour-by-hour grids and see where people are tuning in and tuning out, and check your underperformers using your AQH, turnover, and CUME trends. If you subscribe to PD Advantage, and I know everyone gets a vital signs report, check it if you haven't. We know that sometimes the email gets overwhelming and you don't always have a chance to read them, but your vital signs report will show the top performers. And if you subscribe to PD Advantage, the top performers chart allows you to measure your station's performance against the national averages for your format. So this can include program repeats, popular hosts that get featured more prominently as a result of doing that examination to see where you're indexing higher or lower relative to other stations across the country in your format. Dave or Carl, is there anything you'd like to add on this aspect of what we're talking about today?
Loyalty information for diary-based markets you can find in our Listener PC program. So you can go in and actually look at any part of the day and see what the loyalty level is. And loyalty is just simply, it's a public radio metric that we came up with, 40 years ago or more, that basically just says, of your listeners, they're listening, only your listeners, what percentage is going to you during any time of the day. And that's loyalty.
And we don't exactly have loyalty in PPM markets, but there's still other ways to see it, to notice it, and see what the signs are, like with time spent listening and occasions and duration. There's other ways to find it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Occasions and duration, even if you don't subscribe to PD Advantage in the diary markets, there is an occasions and duration area. Yeah, so average time spent listening, you can take a look at that and then break it up into occasions and duration.
Right on. Thank you, guys. Programming that drives revenue. It's a fairly simple equation here. Strong TSL indicates better membership returns. High CUME, your underwriting can become more valuable. Use the data that's there to strengthen your grant applications for operating capital and specific project funding. With funding for public radio cut from the federal level, applying to private funders is ever more important for public radio stations. And the more data you can use to inform those applications, and again, anyone here today that has ever completed a grant application knows you're answering the same 5 or 6 questions over and over again in different ways, and the data can help you to make a stronger case in doing so and make appeals for things like equipment upgrades or developing specific programming that serves underserved local audiences in your community. It's a very effective way to go. And grant funders still have a lot of money that they're sitting on. So action steps, things that you can do as soon as the webinar is over and you've had a moment to collect yourselves. You can break your day part loyalties down by demographic, by checking your turnover report, by reviewing your vital signs reports, along with what you're seeing in your market data. You can certainly check your best performing shows. Suggest that if you are a PD Advantage user, that use at least the last 4 surveys in vital signs and look for trends that you can act upon. Is their CUME rising or dipping? Where is AQH rising or dipping? Are your P1 listeners at least 40% of your CUME day part to day part? Every subscribing RRC station receives a vital signs report. If you're unsure of how to access it or how to interpret it, again, Carl, Dave, and myself are happy to connect with you and help you through that stuff and answer questions and shed light as best as we possibly can. We are here to help you and your station to become as successful as it can be in these current circumstances.
Even if you're not a PD Advantage subscriber, I mean, the vital signs report that we post up at our website every time your data are released, you can get information about your first preference audience, day part breakouts, composition, age composition breakouts, male, female breakouts, all kinds of stuff, even just on one page, and it will track like 5 surveys that you can take a look at.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly useful tool, and urge you to take a look if you haven't seen one yet. Excuse me. The glossary of terms that you see linked here, we know that there are folks that sometimes get, excuse me, that sometimes get rusty on terminologies that we use in the radio world, or you have new team members or interns that may not be familiar with a lot of the terms. So scan the QR code on your screen. This is a really useful resource that explains how, provides definitions of the terms, I should say, and will provide answers. It's well worth bookmarking if you're able to do so. And then right here, our last slide, resources. Again, we are here to help you. Schedule a data consultation with your client services team. You can reach us by phone. You see the main number and extensions are listed on your screen. The QR code will take you to the appropriate page on the RRC's website. And we would love to be able to spend some time with you and help you interpret your data for an improved outcome. And a couple of people have asked in the chat, we are going to share the recordings of all 4 of these snackable webinars. Ideally by next week, they'll be posted and linked, and we'll email all attendees, or registrants, I should say, for these webinars to access the webinar recordings and be able to consume them or share them with your team members as you need to. This is by intent a surface level overview. We wanted to be respectful of your time and keep this within 20 minutes. And so with that being said, if you have questions right now would be a great time to place them in the chat, and we would be happy to address them for you.
And just to restate, as we did at the top, this is meant to be an overview, but it's why Carl and I enjoy working with stations one-on-one with your own local data so much. There's only so much you can generalize. Stations are so different. Formats are so different. Markets are so different. Everything's different. At the end of the day, whatever you're seeing in your vital signs, in your market reports, send Carl an email, send me an email, David as well. And that's when we can really do the best at bringing in even some back data too, not just focusing on the latest numbers, but just giving it a wholesale overview of what the numbers look like.
I would add to that for any participants that subscribe to software, whether it's LPC Cloud or TapScan, if you're unsure of how to use it or struggling with it or have a new team member, let us know. We are happy to walk you through it and show you how to get the benefit from that subscription to that software. LPC Cloud is very useful for diary markets to really break down your data. The crossover report is a lot easier to read than it is on TapScan. For TapScan, there's a lot of really great data there as well, but if you're unsure of how to slice and dice it, we can help you to do so. So please reach out to us with any questions related to these topics. Our job is to help you do the best that you can.
No questions in the chat. So, if nobody has any questions, I guess email us at these email addresses and we'll be happy to do a one-on-one book review, as it's called.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all. Oh, we have somebody's in the chat here. Good overview. Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. We appreciate that. Thank you all for being here with us today and joining us. Again, we are happy to help. Thanks so much and hope you've enjoyed our snackable webinar series.
Thanks.
All right.